So first of all, what a great honor, and thanks a lot, Sharon, for allowing us to listen to you about what sailing used to look like, and all those downwind legs full of color, and your incredible career. Definitely growing overseas and not having access to those events, your calendar and images has always been inspiring and make us go one more time offshore. And again, it's the ultimate sailing calendar was something that we will always were looking forward to get, and every month a new image, and super cool. So thanks a lot for all those memories. And thanks again for being with us during this boat show.
Oh, well, thanks, Juan. Thanks for inviting me. And this is a fabulous idea to have a virtual boat show. I think it's really, really exciting. And I've had a great time, during this COVID, doing the trip down memory lane, which is kind of how this all started. Was I, dug out all the old slides and got out the scanner and started posting, Throwback Thursdays, and really curating some fun posts to sort of bring back the color and show everybody what it used to look like, in the 80s and 90s and somewhat into the 2000s. And so that's where I'm going to focus on today, is bringing you some of those great photos that I've dug out of my archives painfully. And but let's start at the beginning, how I got into this whole crazy business as a unique specialization within a specialization, because I specialize just in competitive yacht racing. So here we go.
The screen is all yours, and let me enjoy the show.
Thank you. Chime in anytime and ask any questions. So where did it all begin? Well, I grew up in Canada, in Hamilton and Burlington, Ontario, and I was a junior sailor for a period of time. I grew up in a family that enjoyed boating. My dad actually sailed around the world when he was 18, and had beautiful, wonderful, incredible stories that he always told us of his trip around the world. We had a couple different boats. This one here is a boat called Motivation. It was a CNC 38, I believe. And my group of junior sailors, this is us on the right, that motley crew you see there. This is the junior sailing team, my brother and my dad. And my dad wasn't racing, but we convinced him to take out this boat Motivation and race it just in our local keelboat night race. So it's just dad and all us junior sailors. And, we were doing tactics and navigating and running the boat. And we won, and that one race. And we went on to what I always say, dominate around Lake Ontario as the Motivation Super Crew, which was the name of the boat. And there would be my dad. My mom would make the sandwiches for the boat, and all us juniors were running the boat. It was quite a lot of fun. At one point, we actually did have matching t-shirts too. So that led from one thing to the other. My dad got bit by the bug, and I went off. I was already photographing, and I went off to photography school for summer program. I was still in high school, and my mom would write to me, and she was telling me about this boat called Evergreen that my dad was building, a CNC. So I just figured it was kind of like the other CNC that we had. And I had no idea, hadn't set eyes on it until it was launching day on a dreary November day down in Bronte, Ontario. And that was the first time I had set eyes on the boat. I didn't see it at all during the building. And off we went on this day. You can see everybody's wearing beanies, and off we went out onto Lake Ontario. And this is one of my very first photographs I ever took of sailing. And I was like, wow, well, that was easy. And next thing I know, the manufacturer of the boat is calling and asking me for pictures, and we did posters for the builder. And this boat went on to campaign exclusively for the Canada's Cup, which is a match race between Canada and the United States. At this point, the United States Bayview Yacht Club held the cup. That next summer, I had a job, and it's a 4-month long campaign where you have to, go through the Challenger trials. And so we're racing against other boats from Toronto. And then once we won that, go to the States to sail against the US rivals. And so every moment I had, there I was with my camera locked and loaded. I would race down and try and take pictures. I was able to get on board. Yeah, it was a great summer, June through September of, great. I met all kinds of international people like Lowell North and Tim Stern came and sailed on the boat. And this turned into a really big deal. Through lots of disasters, I think we lost 2 rigs, ran aground. It was a centerboard boat, so it was very revolutionary, pushing the envelope at the time for a 2-tonner. And it had this, massive hydraulic panel in the middle. And so people were very curious. So all the creators of this, machine came and sailed on the boat, as many Americans, because you had to have so many Canadians and Americans. Anyhow, this led to an incredible summer photographing the Canada's Cup. I learned a lot through the magazines that taught me how to shoot with transparencies. And we all became a huge family, the Evergreen family. And we went on in triumph to win that Canada's Cup from Bayview Yacht Club and bring it back to Royal Hamilton Yacht Club in Hamilton, Ontario. And this is where it really all began. So there I was in high school. I ran a little business out of the basement because the phone would ring. Back in those days, you could call up, information and ask, Don Green's home phone number, and the phone would ring, and I would intercept all these phone calls from people asking for pictures of Evergreen. So there I was in high school running this business. Anyhow, this led to magazines being published, getting paid money. I really thought I'd already made it. And so then my career moved on to then working exclusively photographing competitive yacht racing, and lots of magazines, editorial assignments, working for, I worked for 8 America's Cups, and whether I was an official photographer, a press photographer, I've worked for Newsweek, Time, Sports Illustrated, and been featured in the New York Times, as well as all these kind of sailing publications. And then along came the Ultimate Sailing Calendar. And the calendar came along because I was doing all these editorial features, but sometimes a lot of the pictures would get overlooked. Really good pictures of great racing. Maybe that boat wasn't featured or they didn't win that regatta, but I had great images. So I went on to control my own destiny and decided to make a calendar. In 1983 was my first calendar, and that gave me I could curate my own calendar with my own pictures. And so I had some control. This became an annual fun project that expanded, and it was so exciting to be traveling, taking pictures, have the calendar always as my primary existence. I really, really photographed for that calendar in between all my campaigns, and whether I was working on ad campaigns or for events. The calendar was always my first thing I always photographed for, which is why most of my images are horizontal. Anyhow, moving on to where all the color came from. Back in the 1980s, I got a call from a friend of mine, and I had never been to San Francisco, let alone had even really heard of the Big Boat series. And so they invited me to come out, and this became, I would have to say, my favorite event to photograph, especially in the days of when we had this kind of color, spinnakers and bloopers, and just so much action. The bay, in the confines of the bay, you have all these great events. Now, moving fast forward several decades, this is kind of what it looks like now. It's just white spinnakers. So backing up a little bit, this was the grand days of spinnakers and bloopers going downwind in San Francisco. And nowadays, this is, a number of years ago with Far 40s, all white spinnakers and, pretty, just mostly windward lewards as well. So the Big Boat series was always my favorite event to go, because I knew this is where I was going to get reaching legs and powered up boats and lots of drama, because it, for the most part, it was windy. You could almost guarantee it was going to be windy. Look at the days of the 80s. Like, look at these 2 boats, how their spinnakers match the hull. And it sort of creates this, it was like it was a signature. And I know these guys that did the graphics, how much fun was that? And here we have a nice powered up day in the bay, we'd have reaching legs to upwinds to downwinds, and just the color. Some of these are the ones that I have gone and found in my archives and scanned. We did a slideshow for St. Francis Yacht Club since the Big Boat series was canceled this year. So I dug into the files and found some of my favorite ones from the old days. I do remember these days, it was such a challenge because there was so much going on in the bay. It was hard to decide where to be. And, multiple race courses going on simultaneously. So it was really, really, really challenging. Here's another one of those boats that matches their spinnaker. The hull matches the spinnaker. And just fun. Everybody really had fun. And interesting boat names, whether it was graphics on the hull, whether it was your gear. This is, more modern day, but these are J70s in the bay. At least some nice color there. This is current as well, having the Pac 52s. The Pac 52s have a lot of color. Every boat has a great color and sort of a theme, and it's their signature. Another powered up day in the bay. It was just a matter of trying to line up boats, and we'd be soaking wet because we didn't have great photo boats. We didn't have protectors and ribs and boats to chase around in. I think most of the time I was in a little Boston whaler, little center console, just getting absolutely beat up and soaked. And these were film days too. So that was not an easy task, changing film out there. More current, TP52. Or get the guys all wearing gear that matches. I love this one. This is a fun picture. This always reminds me of, I was doing a presentation in Toronto for a group of photographers, and some lady stuck up her hand and she said, "Hey, how did you ever get all those boats to line up like that?" And I was thinking, wow, if only I could control that and say, "Hey, you guys, I was reloading, we missed the shot, we were in the wrong position, somebody's spinnaker wasn't in line." And when you realize I have absolutely no control over getting boats lined up like this, other than having a really good boat driver and a lot of luck and making sure my lens is dry and there's film in the camera. And, but it's not like I can say, "Hey, can you guys go back and do that again? I missed the shot." This is back in the 2000, I want to say 2007, boat called Pendragon with the beautiful marin headlands in the background. Lots of color. And even if the boat doesn't have color, once again, get all the team and some matchy gear. Definitely this one's matchy. I think we used this as a Christmas card one year. Which leads me to one of my most favorite Big Boat series photographs. And this year, back in the spring, I discovered a puzzle out in my archives, and we put it together. And I did a time lapse of it, and I posted it, and people were like, "Oh, how do we get a copy of that puzzle?" And it was a puzzle that was given to me by a manufacturer. I'd supplied an image back in the 80s, and I still had a couple copies of it. I had never built it. So I decided, well, let's make a puzzle. So I did a Facebook post and had people vote on their favorite image. And this was the image that won the votes. And yes, we have a puzzle. And so it is now our first puzzle, 1,000 pieces. And we have the new calendars ready to launch. The puzzle is, it's almost here. We had to, through COVID, it was in high demand, puzzle manufacturers. So we manufactured in Germany. And as far as I know, it's on its way to our warehouse in Massachusetts. So we're shipping any moment now. And for anybody viewing the show, we have a show discount for 15% site-wide. If you go to ultimatesailing.com, and the 15% code is 15VBS21. And that's site-wide for all our gear. We have even some new buffs that have that particular retro image on it, as well as some more contemporary ones. So we've got new neck buffs, clothing, So check it out at ultimatesailing.com. So one of my next favorite events, this event is no longer, it was every other year. And I started in, I think 83 was my first Kenwood Cup, or at that time, I think it was still Clipper Cup. And off to Hawaii for another amazing event. A lot of helicopter work at this event because it's the only way you could get around. It's so rough. And that event, I did a lot on the water, but did as much time as I could in the helicopter. And once again, we had overnight races, distance races, reaching legs, round the state races, which I'll get to next, and lots of color. The biggest challenge of photographing the Kenwood Cup in those days was just getting around in the big seas if you're on the water. And, it was film days. So, you're loading these canisters of film and you're just getting, beat up on the water in a chase boat of some sort. But positioning at marks like this shot with everybody in their matching gear of the Windward Passage. I love this picture. Everybody's kind of in motion, in action, and the color of the water was amazing. Aerials, you'd have these, takedowns where the spinnakers would just let loose and try and capture that over the head look. And it was just fun. Great color water, boats from all over the world. A lot of the teams coming from Japan, New Zealand, Europe, all over. And it was great. The harbor would be just filled with all these boats, side tied. And the parties, it would go on and on and on and on. I think it was like a 10-day event. And often these boats, once they got over to Hawaii, would often then go to San Francisco and do the big boat series. So every other year was a Kenwood Cup. And then that year of big boat series would be a big year because we'd have maxi boats and all these international teams. This is an evening start. This was the state race, or nicknamed Hate the State Race. And it was an overnighter rounding the state of Hawaii. And it was always an evening start. So it was kind of challenging because in Hawaii at like 6 p.m., the sun goes down and you get these big puffy clouds on the horizon. And it was super challenging because you might lose your light. And once again, we're shooting film. So the film speed was really, really slow. So we'd be shooting, with a ISO of 50 or 64 if it was Kodachrome days. This is one of those evenings where it was an evening start and you can see how low the light is. But we would have light literally for maybe 20 minutes if we were lucky on that start. And then off they would go. And we would go back, and all the photographers would go, party, because in days of film days, we couldn't drop off our film, or we drop off the film, but we couldn't, none of it was now and immediately like digital days where you go back and you start downloading your photographs. So we had a lot of fun as well. Maxi yachts. It was just exhilarating. It was so much fun with all the international teams. And color. This is a fun photo. This is a maxi yacht that's behind. That spinnaker is from a maxi yacht boomerang from behind, sitting over top of, or looking like it's over top of the maxi boat Falcon. This is a maxi boat, looking so small in those great big huge seas. Once again, aerial, got to get up and over. And great backdrops. I think that kind of looks like that's Cocoa Head in the background. And we would go as far as we could upwind and guess on the trajectory of the boats and when they would tack out as they were going up this coast to get these kinds of shots. And lots of action. Boats wiping out, more spinnakers. So if you really enjoy all of these pictures, especially some of the older ones, come to our website, go to ultimatesailing.com. And if you sign up, we have a free monthly screensaver. And if you sign up, we do a monthly newsletter, and the newsletter talks about that month's feature in the calendar and how I got the shot. So it'll be a little bit about the background of whatever event it is, and I talk about how I got the shot, or about the class or the event. And then you get a free monthly screensaver, and you have access to all the previous screensavers as well. Once you get in there, you can go and choose your screensaver or choose all of them. So just once a month. Sign up at ultimatesailing.com. The next event, another one of my favorite ones. Now this event was every year. So every year we would go to Key West for Key West Race Week. This started back in the 80s. I want to say 86 was the first year of Key West. And it went through different years of sponsorship and who started it and was running it. It was started by Yachting Magazine once upon a time. And you can't beat the color of Key West, just the water alone. And when it would blow, we'd have these huge turquoise seas all churned up, sometimes quite silty, looking kind of like they're floating on this water. I mean, it's real. That's real. And just, it has this sort of translucent, the water has this translucent color. And when it blows, it is such an amazing place to photograph. Also very challenging because at times we'd have 3 or 4 race courses going on at the same time. And you had to just guess, which one's going to be good, which one's going to be further out, which one's going to be in the current, which one's going to have the bigger waves or more breeze or more action, more color, more one designs. This is a fleet of J70s, slightly more recently. Key West Race Week is no longer. I hear there's some sort of revival about to happen. But Key West Race Week, it was kind of like a winter event where everybody was there from all over the world, everybody from designers, sailmakers, manufacturers, boat builders, pro sailors, amateur sailors, one design fleets. It was such a great event because it was like going to a boat show. It was like everybody was there and you could see everybody. It was a nice solid week long. These may be all white boats with white sails, but what a dramatic backdrop. Lots of action, downwind action, upwind action, big waves. The last Key West Race Week we had, it was massive waves. Like every single day was huge. And I think we sailed every single day. A lot of color in the TP52 class. They joined us for the last couple Key West Race Weeks, and they added, such a great excitement and color to that event. A lot of pro sailors as well. And these guys travel all over the world. This is the old IOR 50 days. This is also 50s. And this is kind of, you can see 2 different colors of water in Key West. So if you're a little further offshore, it just depends what the current is doing. So this is a fleet of far 40s. And so if you're inshore and it's been windy, you get this good green color. And then as they sail further offshore, it gets clearer, the water gets clearer. Here it is, that sort of mushy green after a big storm or a big southerly. The One Design 48s were part of Key West for quite some time, adding lots of color and action, as well as a lot of pro teams as well. far 40s. There's even color and spinnaker takedowns. This shot was featured in the calendar. I can't remember which year. And the guy in this photograph, he wrote to me and he goes, "That's me." This is a Wally yacht coming up as a Melgus 32 is going downwind. And it was just sort of this beast sailing around during Key West. There was only one, and they would just be going upwind, downwind, all by themselves. This is a nice slow shutter speed shot where I'm tracking alongside of them using a slow camera shutter speed. Look at all that blue water coming up to the start, timing the start. This is a really hard shot to get and stay dry. Photographing boats going upwind in any sea condition, I don't care what kind of boat you're on. It's a really hard shot to get. I think I was in a protector or some sort of big, boat like that, but still very, very wet point of sail. Oh, we'd have our storms too, share storms during Key West. Plenty of rain squalls. Another fun sort of collaboration of colors. So that was Key West. Moving on to the SRC, which was another great place to catch photographs. This event went on and on and on, almost over a month in its original days. When I first started ever going to the SORC, it started with a series of races out of St. Pete. Then the boats would race around. So they do, I think, an overnight, a distance race out of St. Pete, then race around to Fort Lauderdale, I think. Juan, did you sail in this one? Did you sail in the SORCs?
Not directly. I did a lot of Key West, and I was not in the US at the time of the old SRC.
The old SRCs.
Yeah, but
and this was...
but I remember the days, and there was a lot of IOR offshore racing in South America at that time, the 80s.
Yes.
And I remember having a picture, probably yours, of Abracadabra with the old UK original tape drive on my wall.
Right.
And so, yeah, definitely there were the sparring days and something that we were always be looking forward to do.
Well, it was a great, this is before pro sailors too. You have to remember back in the 80s, it was, people had to, have incredible jobs that, they could get this much time off to go to Florida, which was called the Southern Ocean Racing Conference. And there might be a week between races. So we'd have races out of St. Pete, then they'd race around, I think, to Fort Lauderdale, then go down to Miami, then a race out of Miami, and then a couple more races, and then a race over finishing in Nassau. And this was also an industry type of event where, sail makers, boat builders, designers, hardware manufacturers would come down and sail with their clients on the boats. It was a testing ground, basically, and boats came from, once again, all over the world to the SORC. This is a boat from Sweden. Look at all those guys there. And it was just always fun because every boat had some sort of theme, some sort of graphic. A couple of days I would race on board. Has a great time sailing. That's Gary Jobson and Mike Topa on the left. And I think that's Keith Lawrence. That's on board Sorcery on the right. And we had some chilly days. You can see, because there was one time it snowed one time in the St. Pete side. And you can see how chilly it is. Everybody's bundled up in full foulies. This was a really, really foggy day on the west coast of Florida. Look at all those boats lined up on a nice spinnaker reach. fun starts, great color water. This could be actually the start of the Nassau race, the race over to Nassau. Oh, this was the day I was thinking about with the snow. I remember getting down to the boats and people were chiseling ice off the deck. And we had this huge, huge, huge northerly had come through and the waves were massive out there. The Swedish boat again, midnight sun. Just lots of fun days, fun racing, interesting designs. And of course, I always had in my mind, what I was looking for was color and calendar shots. I know this shot was in the calendar. Boat called Aries. Spinnaker Reach. This looks like this could be, I believe this is in the St. Pete side. Maxi yachts. There's a lot of maxi yacht photos. I didn't include all of them, but a lot of maxi yachts would come down and do the Southern Ocean Racing Conference. Another chilly day. I remember this one. Looks like we're sailing around the buoys. I can see a buoy back in the background. Fun, kind of chaotic looking start out of Miami, that looks like. I remember this day too. This is on the St. Pete side. And I was reminded by somebody who saw this picture that you can see the damage on the bridge behind was apparently a tanker or a ship hit that bridge. And they rebuilt that whole bridge. So we have some more products to pitch. Once again, we have sailing gear and these new neck buffs to protect your skin from sun, as well as people are using them also as a COVID mask, especially when you're walking down the dock. It's good to pull it up over your face. And we have several different designs. You can have a throwback one, or we've got a new action one. So once again, check it out at ultimatesailing.com and your discount code is 15VBS21. Okay, so just a little bit about how I get the shot. So it really requires being well organized and having a boat driver who understands sailing. That is key. You know, if you get out there with somebody who doesn't know sailing, you're directing at the same time as trying to concentrate on photographing, making sure you're in the right place at the right time. And I like to work with experienced drivers. So it takes a lot of work out of it if you have somebody who knows something about sailing and can position you safely for both yourself and the crews. We don't want to get in the way. I've had a few close calls, and it's good to have somebody who knows what they're doing. That's key in taking photographs. Protecting camera equipment is the other key, whether it's modifying. For years I modified a cooler, like a big igloo cooler that has a hingy top. I'd modify the cooler so I could put my cameras with the lenses attached to them in the cooler. So lining it with foam and padding and having a special latch so it can't fly open. Currently, I'm using a hard case like this. And this has two big lenses in there. That's a 2-400 with a 1.4 extender. That looks like the 1-400, and then a camera with a wide angle in the case at all times. And then I also have a underwater housing. I don't know if you can see that in the left picture, that I use in certain cases. Can't use it everywhere, certainly not on an America's Cup. And a dry bag Dry bag is really, really important. And I'll often keep maybe a spare lens or body in that dry bag all padded up just in case something goes down. So this is your typical on the water shot, being in a good position with a good driver. This is during a world, so it looks like we're really close, but I'm using a Mongo. I think I shot this with a 500 is what I'm guessing. And so it looks like we're really, really close, but we get the shot and then we would get out of the way, we probably just slid off to weather of this boat as they went by. Helicopter, that's one of my favorite places to be, high and dry in a helicopter. Once again, it requires a really, really good pilot. There's nothing worse than getting up there with a pilot who won't go down below 1,000 feet. And you really get absolutely nothing at 1,000 feet. But having a good pilot, I like to fly in an R-44. This is an R-44 over to the right there and also to the left there. And this is kind of stuff you get up in the air. We also get down really, really low and photograph right from behind is a really easy way to do it from a helicopter because you're downwind of the boats and not in the way. This is demonstrating with my colleague Daniel Forster using an underwater housing. So there's a camera in there. Mine has a different setup than Daniel's. And you have a trigger. You can see the triggers in my right hand. And they have these big domes on them. You can't see what you're shooting. So the trick is to look and see if you can see the reflection of what you're shooting in the dome if you look down on the water. And I have a trigger that is firing the camera. And these are the kind of shots you get with an underwater housing. It doesn't always work out so well because sometimes you might get more sky, more water. And also it depends what kind of boat you're on. It's nice to be on, like we're on a great big a rib on this one, looks like a protector. And it's easy to hover over the side. I have mine on a pole. Daniel handholds his, although I have seen him use a pole as well. And, if you have a really deep-sided boat, I have an extension of that pole to hang it over, but it gets rather unwieldy at that point. On board is always fun when you can get on board a J-class yacht like Savea. That's a good angle. And here's some of the aftermath after a big day on the water, sorting out the equipment, cleaning the equipment. And because you get just abused, and it's always good to try and wipe off some of the salt at the end of the day. Then nowadays it starts the downloading. As soon as you get to the dock, the work begins. Everybody wants everything now and immediately. And so there I am in my hotel room, downloading to my external drive. And there's my colleague Betsy and I, that's us heading off to probably a Transpac. That's one of my older cases there, the waterproof case. It's an old igloo cooler that I put special latches on for travel. And I put a waterproof seal as well. And I have them positioned all over the country. I have them in Rhode Island. And so if I get there and I don't want to take my other big hard case, I just call up my friends who store it in their basement for me. I go and I pick it up at their house. Another big day, helicopter day. This is a bigger helicopter. This was a really big offshore shoot in Miami last year that we went way off into the Gulf Stream and coordinated with the teams racing. And this was a very, very long day. It was freezing cold, I do recall. It took me 2 days to thaw out. And but this is the result of that exciting day out there. And these are the days I wish every day could be like this. I wish every day could be as good as this. And that brings us to the 2021 Ultimate Sailing Calendar. It's available now, and it's our annual portfolio of work. And I do now include some of my colleagues. So to bring it more of an international flavor, as well as get to events that I can't possibly get to because I can't be everywhere at the same time, I have invited about 5 of my colleagues who work all over the world, South America, Europe, and included some of their fine work to give the calendar a well-rounded perspective. And we even include, classic yachts every now and then, events that, or maybe around the world events or events that I just can't possibly be everywhere at the same time. And I do like to curate the calendar and showcase my colleagues' amazing work. So here we are. This concludes it. So check us out at ultimatesailing.com and, see what we've got there on our website. And that's it. Juan, do you have any questions?
Actually, everybody have one that repeats itself. I can narrow it down to, so what happened? How we went from those multicolor images to the plain white spinnakers? What happened with the reaching legs? What happened with the point A's to point B's? And where you are part of the history of sailing of the last couple of years.
A lot has changed. It's of course, sails have changed, and white sails apparently are lighter than colored sails. And then sailing's gone to asymmetrical sails. So you do get, boats sailing downwind. They are definitely on tighter angles. There's no more reaching legs involved in sailing. It's just windward lewards. Big Boat Series does throw in a couple reaching legs here and there to keep everybody on their toes. That's the only event I know that still will throw in some reaching legs, especially their last day. They have the Around the Bay race, and that's the time you'll see some boats reaching. And
so I will assume that after watching your presentation and giving the option, I'm going to say 99.9% of us would like to go back to those days, not only because we will be younger, but it seems to be a little bit more exciting and in a way to showcase what we do and why we love it. And not that we will not go sailing tomorrow. Actually, after seeing your pictures, I'm ready to go sailing right now. But given the option, it seems that those days were a little bit more exciting, and probably the people involved in the industry, are in some way guilty of collaborating with that loss of color and excitement through the images. And part of the idea of this virtual boat show is to find common ground, to find our way back to those feelings, emotions, big themes, and bring it back to what it used to be.
Yes. Well, I would love that. There's a lot of events that we used to have back then, but we no longer have the SORC and QS Race Week and those events. So now it's a little bit harder because most of the events I go to will be a one design event. And, I think Big Boat Series is the only one that has, multiple fleets and classes of boats sailing, at the same time. And, as for the future of sailing, I've only done a couple events this year. Once again, COVID canceled all the Caribbean events that I was going to go to, which the Caribbean events are fantastic and lots of color there. And you get color in the seas there, and not all the boats are white as well. And you get great backdrops. So, it's kind of tough, right now, looking at the schedule, there's not a whole lot on the schedule because everything has been postponed or canceled. So I'm not quite sure what the future is going forward.
I mean, on the immediate future next year or the next 18 months, I mean, on the long range, like 10 years from today, no? Obviously, we are now focused on foiling, but again, given two images, definitely your presentation brings a lot more excitement through those images than more current ones, no? And, I don't want to sound like too old, no? Like willing to go back. I'm just looking to the faces of the people that work with me, seeing your pictures for the first time, and they're asking the same questions, and they're on their 20s. So,
well, I'm glad they like the vintage throwback photos.
yeah, let's go back sailing the classics. So, I truly appreciate your time, taking the time to be with us and to put all this together for the sailing community, for the people that are 30 and younger that were not part of that history of those moments. I think is important.
Right.
And for us that are 50 or older, and I will be there, great to see it again and remember that we were there and getting soaking wet and having 20 different rolls of spinnaker repair tape because you need one per color. So,
that's right.
And yeah, and all bruised up and nothing that a dark stormy or a typical rum and coke at Key West at the end of the day with nuts also.
Oh, I used to enjoy those days too. Well, it was still film. Once we transitioned into digital, that my whole job changed where, you know, work starts when you get in and not so much fun anymore. Got to get those deadlines done.
Well, once again, I cannot thank you enough, and I'm sure everybody's going to enjoy it, and you will get a lot of follow-up inquiries. And I'm looking forward to see you in the next event.
Great. Thank you, Juan.
Thank you, Sharon.
All right.